I am planning to end things with the guy I like over his girl best friend. So I got asked out by a distant co-worker of mine a little over a month ago. We've gone on 4 dates since. We hit it off pretty well since we have a lot in common and share a similar sense of humor. He's been great so far. He's also hinted at wanting something long-term. In our conversations of family and friends, he mentioned a friend called Max several times. What I'd gotten so far from his stories was Max was a childhood friend his age. They went to the same college and kept in touch. They had silly, in a good way, traditions. He had some pretty funny stories about his family and friends, so I laughed and shared some of my own. On the 4th date, however, I found out that Max was a girl. I don't know how it never came up. He never said she, mostly referred to her as Max. I don't think he tried to hide that Max was female though. It just never came out. So, I sneakily asked if Max was single. I have a cousin who's great and single, and he said she was and has been for a while now. He was on board with setting up Max with my cousin. I also said something like, "Oh, so she's kind of like your best friend?" "Probably. She's definitely my longest friend," he replied. We continued the rest of the dinner talking about other things. I decided to stalk his social media. He had like 6 pictures on Instagram and 4 of them had comments from a Maxine. So, of course, I stalked hers too. She had a lot of pictures and saved stories with him. Probably 30% of her saved stories was of or with him. One post was of him, sitting across her in table at a local cafe. He was smiling towards the camera. The caption said, "Caffeine sessions with my therapist. I'm sure there are people of different sexes perfectly capable on platonic relationships, but it's just not something I'm comfortable with. Perhaps it's a me thing or I have issues, but I don't like that he's that close to another female. I'd just never be comfortable. I think he's better off with a girl who's cool with it. I know I won't be able to be with a guy who has a girl best friend." The next day, he invited me out to lunch and asked me if we could be official/exclusive. When he saw my hesitancy, he immediately asked me if I needed more time or if anything was wrong. So I kind of laid it out to him. Told him he was wonderful, but I'm not the type of girl who is okay with girl best friends. He didn't do anything wrong, but perhaps we have different boundaries and I don't want him to lose a 20+ years friendship because of a girl he's known for a month. He said he understood where I was coming from. He also said that he could really see us being serious and long-term. He proposed that we continue seeing each other for a bit, meet Max, and if I'm still uncomfortable after 6 months, he'll go LC with her. Can't cut her off because she's an established family friend. I really like him, but I don't want him to lose a friend because of me. At the same time, I am certain I won't be okay with a friendship like theirs and would rather end it now since it's only been a month, whereas in 6 months, it'll hurt significantly more. Should I just end things with him? Comment. I had this same thing when my GF went on a trip with 2 of her male friends and some family. I felt very uncomfortable with it, until I met them. One guy acted like her little brother, and I don't know much about women, but I do know they don't feel romantic feelings for guys like that. The other guy was his buddy, but he was obsessed with his job and brought the equipment from that job to test on this trip. Unique circumstances. He was infinitely more interested in that than what the rest of the world was doing. Long story short, you should meet Max before you make this decision. You may find that their dynamic is quite different than what is playing around in your mind. You might even like her. Yeah, one of my best friends is a girl, but it's more of an annoying siblings vibe. We were actually roommates for a couple years in college, plus 2 other platonic friends. Everyone had their own room, and both of the long-term BFS she had during this time did not like me, which I totally understand because living together is a bit much to stomach. After college we're still close and have the same vibe when we see each other, but that only happens maybe once or twice a month at max. Even during stretches of extremely low contact, I still know she's one of my best friends, and I even got to give a toast at her wedding last year. Seems like Ops guy is fine with that kind of dynamic and is honestly listening to Ops concerns and has come up with a reasonable solution. Question is how Max will take it, since it does seem like she might still have some feelings, but at the same time I would suggest waiting to see how she reacts or meeting her before jumping to conclusions. If she actually just views him platonically, then I think she should understand. I mean, honestly, it doesn't sound like she's actually that much of a best friend. Maybe he just doesn't have that many friends, so she would kind of qualify as his best friend even though it really isn't that deep for him. I mean, he keeps repeating they've just been friends a long time. It's possible it's just not that important a friendship to him anymore anyways, and that's why he's fine going LC for a potential romantic partner. To be fair to the guy, I've been there and I don't really know if it's fair to question his character too much, but it's definitely worth pointing out. Sometimes you get really passionate about someone and feel like you have to make a choice, especially if you're young and haven't had too much experience in relationships. My advice to Op would be, if it truly bothers you, to let him go. Honestly, to be completely blunt, which I think is important here, yes, you clearly do have trust issues, and I don't mean to say that as a negative, it's just a fact. He's given you no reason to distrust him and yet you still do. That is not his fault. However, what's important here is that you've already done better than a lot of people to recognize it. The worst thing to do would be to go into a relationship after he's cut her off. From experience, all that does it slowly build resentment, and when the relationship inevitably fails because of it, he'll probably feel like you cheated him out of a friend and his time, compounding the issue, and you'll be left still questioning if he was faithful and probably develop more intense problems with trust. Either you trust him or you don't. That's it. He can't convince you to trust him, so if you can't convince yourself, you should do the mature thing and leave. Next story 2. My friend didn't show up during toughest period of my life. Hello, the friend in question was my best friend since childhood, but in recent years we distanced from each other because she moved out to study in different city, and we hang out like once or twice a month. Nonetheless, when we hang out, it's like we see each other every day. We just continue from where we stopped last time we've seen each other. But I'm questioning, should I continue doing this, because I have a doubt that she is a good friend to me because of following situation that happened. This year a close family member of mine has had a tragic accident that left them quadriplegic, and in ICU for very long time. It left my family members and me in very bad psychological state. During this time my friend didn't show too much support and just went out with different people and didn't reach out to me for a couple of months. The cost of medical treatment of our family member is astronomical. So our family organized a fundraiser event to help them get medical treatment ASAP. This is the moment I started doubting our friendship. A lot of people showed up at our event, family, acquaintances that drove from other countries, people that we don't even know but were touched by the story. But not my friend. She didn't come. My question is, should I continue hanging out with her? Because I do have good time with her when we hang out. Even if I know that she didn't show up at the toughest period in my life, while a lot of people that weren't that close to me, did. I don't know if I should just cut ties with her, or continue to hang out with her, without any deeper meaning like friendship. Comment. I'm sorry to hear about the difficult situation you and your family are going through. As for your friendship, there are a few things to consider. A true friend would have supported you during this traumatic time, not disappeared for months. Her absence shows her priorities. It's understandable to want to hang out for fun, but you can't rely on her for deeper emotional support based on her actions. You may start resenting spending time together if underlying doubts and hurt from her lack of support remain unaddressed. Consider talking to her openly and honestly about how her absence made you feel. See how she responds and if accountable. Even good childhood friends can drift apart as priorities change. It's okay to reevaluate the friendship. Ultimately, only you can decide if continuing casually hanging out is enough, or if you want/need more from friendships at this stage of life. Don't feel obligated based on history if core expectations aren't being reasonably met. Take time to process your feelings before deciding. Your well-being is most important right now. Every person's different in how they handle their own and other people's tragedies. Without talking to her and communicating, you'll never know her real reason for not being there during this tough time in your life. I could come up with a dozen reasons, and it could even then be something else. To see through social media/IG that she wasn't doing important that day is a judgment call on your part. You're also talking about raising money. At 22, I'm assuming she's not in the financial position to help much, and maybe she felt bad and took the route of avoiding the situation. There is so much you don't know that to ghost her would really make you a bad friend to her because you're not walking in her shoes. You need to ask her what happened. You will never know for sure if she is just not a good friend or she had some personal reason for ignoring you. I know people who have a difficult time dealing with medical issues, and she might have stayed away because of that. But even with a reason like that, there is little excuse to not give you support during that time. Different people have different roles in our lives. She may not be the friend you need for emotional support anymore. Are you able to continue a friendship with her with that in mind? Keep in mind, this is an expectation you have imposed on her. Yes, it is a societal expectation as well, but those are usually trash. Some people just are not good at being supportive. We need to be okay with letting people be who they are. It doesn't sound like she has done anything terrible besides failing to meet your expectations of her. If you cannot change those expectations, then you should move on to prevent further disappointment.